Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today's challenge, a bunch of you wanted me to use the P90 personal defense weapon with the heavy barrel attachment, the ACOG scope, and the laser sight. This was a doozy of a challenge. When I first started to try to get gameplay for it, it was a nightmare. I was struggling. I wasn't even able to kill like 2 people in a row. It was a nightmare, and I honestly was like, screw this. I'm not gonna try and struggle through this. It's not worth it. Just the hell with it. And so then the next day, I was like, you know what? Screw that. Let's buckle down, let's get some gameplay for it, let's have some fun, and make this thing work. And after a couple of rounds after that, and once I really started to buckle down to try to learn how the weapon performed and to see how I could work around it, I eventually, slowly started to do better and better, and eventually got to the point where I was having an absolute blast. And so the first thing that I had to overcome is that the P90 has a ridiculous amount of recoil. Its vertical recoil isn't all that bad, but that's also true for basically all the personal defense weapons in the game. It has a vertical recoil of 0.35. But where things get nasty is when we take a look at its horizontal recoil. It's got a left kick of 0.5 and a right of 0.5. And then on top of that, it has a first shot recoil of 3. This thing kicks like a mule, not only when you first press down the button, but when you continuously hold down the button, it is kicking all over the place. And because I'm also using the heavy barrel along with the ACOG scope, the heavy barrel increasing my recoil by 50% and the ACOG scope just giving me more magnification, whenever I hold down the trigger, my cursor and my reticle is flying everywhere. And so trying to be consistent with all of my shots and trying to take out a target that's at medium to long range almost felt impossible in some circumstances. Another thing I had to work around is that the P90 doesn't hit very hard. It's going to do 21 damage a shot up close and then drop off to 11.2 at long range. And so when you compare that to a lot of the other weapons in the game, like basically every assault rifle, a lot of the personal defense weapons, they usually have the standard damage model of 25 damage per shot up close, and that only requires 4 bullets to slay your enemy. But because the P90 only does 21 damage a shot up close, it's now going to require you 5 bullets. The saving grace of it is that it does have a very high rounds per minute. The P90 has an RPM of 900, so you're getting a lot of bullets down range, but you have to remember, if you come across anyone who was using a high RPM weapon, or really just any standard weapon in Battlefield 4, they're going to have that higher damage model on you, and they're going to be able to take you out very, very quickly. And in combination with that high recoil and a low damage model, trying to be consistent with all of your shots and having a low damage model just to begin with, you can see why this was turning into a little bit of a nightmare. That being said though, normally the P90 isn't an awful gun. Like when you use it appropriately and you have the right attachments, it's decent. It has 51 rounds in its magazine, which is awesome. Like you round the corner, you see 3 guys, you have the magazine easily to take every single one of them out, as long as they probably didn't know you were there. It also has a fairly fast reload time for a weapon that has such a high magazine. It's got a short reload time of 2.45 seconds, and then a long reload time of 3.45 seconds. That long reload time is quite substantial, but once again, you have 51 rounds in a magazine, and so you're probably not going to be reloading all that often, and if you do need to reload, you're probably going to be in a safe spot because you just mowed everyone down in front of you. Another nice attribute of the P90, and easily one of the most appealing aspects of this weapon, is that it has an incredible hipfire accuracy. And I don't know why you guys did this, maybe you just were feeling a little generous, but you also allowed me to use the laser sight attachment, increasing my hipfire accuracy even more. And so you guys will see throughout today's video, if I have the opportunity to hipfire someone down, they round the corner, I'm going to do so. Like if I don't have to aim down sight and deal with that crazy amount of recoil, I'm just going to stick with the trusty hipfire accuracy. And while for the most part I was trying to aim down sight as often as I could, because I know that's the reason why you wanted me to use the ACOG scope and the heavy barrel, and that was the gameplay that you guys were looking for, there were some moments where I was like, nope, I'm just gonna hipfire this guy down, they just rounded the corner, and I'm gonna take advantage of that stat. And so overall, the way that I had to approach this was that I needed to really be on my game. I had to outplay my enemy basically in every single type of combat scenario, and honestly, I had to get up close and personal. Like the P90, when used appropriately, is a close encounter weapon. Like you want to take advantage of the hipfire accuracy, you want to take advantage of that high RPM, and because it doesn't have a very high damage model, like 21 damage a shot up close, is decent, but the further and further out the target goes, the damage is going to get to a point where it's just not even worth going for those targets. And also because of the crazy amount of recoil, I'm just simply not going to be able to win those firefights. And so I mainly sticked with maps where I could use the terrain to my advantage and get up close and personal. Domination is always great, team deathmatch maps are always fantastic, but the map that I always seem to do well on, and is pretty much my playground at this point, is Flood Zone. I realize that many people hate Flood Zone in Battlefield 4. They think that there are way too many nooks and crannies on this map. Every single time you get on top of a rooftop, you're gonna get shot at from 1,000 different places. But for whatever reason, maybe it's just because I have a basic understanding of how to move around on this map, I do phenomenally well. It doesn't matter if I'm using a terrible setup like today or a normal setup. I just destroy it. I love Flood Zone. And so if you're someone who does struggle with this map, my main tip is to basically just avoid the rooftops as much as you can. Like, I know it's very appealing and it would seem like the right thing to do if you're playing on Conquest, to move from one objective to the other objective in the shortest distance, like, and that would be on the rooftops. But because there are so many different angles that you can get shot from the rooftops, you don't last very long when you do that. And so what I do, and basically you guys probably have seen this throughout today's video, is I just move in the underbelly of the map. I'll be down on the ground, I'll be using the different networks of tunnels inside of the buildings, using those to flank my enemies and just move from the objective to objective. And when you do that, you can't get shot from thousands of different angles. You can kind of control the map, you can control what's going around you, and at least for me, that's how I have the most success. But easily the biggest thing that I had to overcome with this challenge was trying to reel in that damn recoil and then working around it. If I did not start a firefight, if I did not start shooting at an enemy before they did, I probably wasn't going to win that engagement. Like 9 out of 10 times, if we started at the same time, because of the crazy amount of recoil, because of the low damage model, the enemy was gonna win like 100%. Like, it just was not in my favor. And so because of that, I had to outplay my targets all the time. Like, if I ran in the corner and I see a bunch of guys there and we start the engagement, but I realize I'm not gonna win, I'm gonna duck behind cover and run away as quickly as I possibly can. Like, I'm not just gonna give them a free kill. And there were a lot of scenarios when I realized that, hey, they know I'm here, I got a couple of shots into them, let's use that knowledge to my advantage, let them assume that I'm gonna stay there and peek out a couple seconds later, but let's loop around and try to get a quick flank off on them. And when I was able to pull off those maneuvers, that's what made this challenge worth it. There were so many moments when I was going on kill streaks that my heart was pounding, adrenaline was flowing through my body, I was having a blast, and that's simply because I knew that I had to outplay my enemy. Like, every single kill that I was getting, I felt like I was earning them. And while I sometimes feel that when I'm using a normal setup, it doesn't happen very often. And honestly, that's the reason why I do this terrible weapon challenge series. Like, it's because of that adrenaline kick. I love experiencing that in video games, and that's exactly what happened when I was using this terrible P90 setup. But overall, this was an absolute blast. I was having a lot of fun outplaying my targets. Reeling in that recoil was a little bit difficult, and initially it was one of the reasons why I almost just completely bagged the idea, but I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad that I forced myself to try to understand the weapon a little bit more, and because of that, it was just the most fun I've had in a long time in Battlefield 4. But that's about it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a setup that you would like me to try next, let me know down below in the comment section, and also make sure to thumbs up those recommendations. It makes it a lot easier for me to know which ones you would like me to try next. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.